ඔෆිස් එකේදී විතරක් නෙවෙයි මම දැන් ගෙදරදීත් IDD calls ගන්න SLT phone එකේ.
ඔබේ නිවසේ SLT දුරකථනය දැන් IDD පහසුකම සහිතයි.
Making headlines on First at 9. Common intentions. President Maithripala Sri Lanka addresses CHOGM's executive session. Says the principal intention of Sri Lanka as well as other countries is a sustainable future. Reforms to the executive. UMP Dr. Vijaydas Rajapaksa stresses that executive presidency should be a key feature of the country's governing mechanism.
They are trying to destroy this country. We won't tolerate that kind of situation to happen in this country.
Making amends. Minister of Tourism assures justice to attacked foreigners.
The government is paying the air tickets, accommodation. Please tell them to come and sit in the courthouse, identify and go off. We guarantee the safety.
Widening the net. Interpol issues red notice for former central bank governor Arjuna Mahendran's arrest. More funding. IMF approves fourth review, but fuel pricing formula a key requirement. Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Katharina Chang. Now on to your top story tonight. President Maithripala Sri Lanka states that the principal intention of Sri Lanka as well as other countries is a sustainable future. The President said this addressing the executive session of this year's Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting yesterday.
The executive session of the 25th Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting was held yesterday at the Lancaster House in London, and President Maithripala Sri Lanka was welcomed to the event by the British Prime Minister Theresa May. The President, then addressing the executive session, said that since Asia is bound to emerge as the economic powerhouse of the world, it is inevitable that Sri Lanka should capitalize on the location-specific advantages and position itself as a hub when this economic boom happens in the Asian region. He further said that Sri Lanka is pleased to have the opportunity to serve as a Blue Charter champion while remaining firmly committed to the full implementation of the Paris Agreement and the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. He further said that Sri Lanka is pleased to have the opportunity to serve as a Blue Charter champion. President Maithripala Sri Lanka then joined a special banquet hosted by Queen of England Elizabeth II.
Enjoyed every moment of our stay here.
It is with great pleasure that I welcome you all here tonight.
In the meantime, the Commonwealth Centre for Digital Health was launched in London today under the patronage of President Maithripala Sri Lanka. The centre was proposed by Professor Vajira Disanayaka of the University of Colombo in 2016 and incorporated into a Commonwealth policy brief on digital systems for One Health approved by the Commonwealth Health Ministers in Geneva in May 2017. Professor Disanayaka will give leadership to the centre as the chairman.
The police today said that Interpol has issued a red notice for the arrest of former governor of the central bank, Arjuna Mahendran. It relates to investigations conducted by the Criminal Investigation Department into the Treasury bond scam at the central bank. The Colombo Fort Magistrates Court had initially issued an arrest warrant on the former governor of the central bank on the 15th of March. Fort Magistrate Lanka Jayaratne issued the warrant on Mahendran on the assessment that he is absconding after considering a request made by the CID and the Attorney General's Department. Mahendran is being charged with criminal breach of trust for allegedly providing confidential information of the central bank to Perpetual Treasuries Limited, a primary dealer connected to his son-in-law Arjun Aloysius. Minister of Tourism John Amaratunga today called on the foreign tourists who were attacked while in Sri Lanka to return to the country, as the government stands ready to facilitate the identification of the culprits. He made open request while addressing a media briefing held in Colombo on the recent incident in Mirissa, where a group of foreign tourists were attacked by locals.
අපි ඉතා ඉක්මනින් We will take all the necessary measures to strengthen tourist patrols. We've got funds to set up 20 tourist police posts this year in locations where tourists hang out most.
Will there be
the police patrolling the beaches?
Obviously, they can't sit inside. They have to be outside. Their presence have to be felt. So there is one problem that I must confess. Our police force is not strong enough for numbers in order to have many people patrolling the beaches. But at least if we establish the police force in these hotspots, we can be sure that we can have a fair control of these events.
Minister, we had feedback from the Netherlands last night and they wanted to know what we are doing about this.
First of all, we want them to come. Only we hope that people who were harassed would come back to identify the culprits, which is most required by the courthouse. The government is paying the air tickets, accommodation. Please tell them to come and just for 1 hour sit in the courthouse, identify and go off. We guarantee the safety. If police presence is there, this will not happen. We will try to request the Sri Lanka Navy also to try and give some personnel to have their presence in the beach areas.
No, there isn't. That's a shortcoming. The issue is with the excise department. Narcotics and liquor are also sold without licenses and the country doesn't get any income. These are means of income to the country, but they end up being in the pockets of others. And the issue is these spots go on until midnight. If they close early, people won't get intoxicated.
But we are very keen to prosecute and ensure that these culprits are taken to task and sent to jail, so that this will be a lesson to the rest of the people who are hanging around in the beaches.
Free to say that this is an isolated incident. These kind of incidents don't take place in Greece all the time. And if that was the case, I'm sure one of the issues I had was that the police didn't inform the local government heads in the correct manner. Now, if we were told about this before, we also have the capabilities of approaching embassies and things like this and trying to balance these things.
Chairman of the National Council for Road Safety, Dr. Sisira Kodaguda, says that the council has decided to give a further 2-month grace period for three-wheeler drivers island-wide to install required meters and equipment to issue receipts for passengers. Speaking at a media briefing today, he added that even though the law came into effect today, the council is prepared to give necessary assistance for three-wheeler drivers who are faced with difficulty in purchasing meters, especially those who provide their services out of Colombo. Issuing of receipts for passengers was to be made mandatory for three-wheelers island-wide with effect from today. The National Council for Road Safety said that the regulation was brought to ensure quality three-wheeler service in the country. It added that last 6 months was a concession period given for the three-wheeler drivers to get the necessary equipment. However, speaking at a media briefing today, Chairman of the Council, Dr. Sisira Kodaguda, said that a decision was taken by the National Council for Road Safety to delay the mandatory three-wheeler law by a further 2 months. He added that this decision was taken in order to give a grace period for three-wheeler drivers providing their services out of Colombo to purchase meters, as they are currently facing difficulty in obtaining necessary equipment. Three-wheeler associations who were present at the media briefing, however, voiced their opposition to the law, which makes meters and receipts mandatory, saying it would be a loss to the public. We at First at 9 took to the streets early in the day to ask locals as well as tourists as to what they think about the mandatory issuance of receipts to passengers using three-wheelers.
It is good actually, then people won't get cheated. There will be an equal amount and it will be good for everyone.
I think it's a good way to handle the scenario.
No, we never received receipts, but most of the tuk-tuk were metered, so really it's clear, but no receipts.
You have to get a receipt, but I would say like when it comes to the transportation service, it would be actually beneficial for the populace if right now if you would go to one of those three wheels over there, the prices would be different, and if the meters would be actually regulated properly.
Personally, I haven't taken a tuk-tuk yet, but I know that there's a standard price and I will definitely pay attention to this. And I mean, you have the signals, metered taxi.
Yeah, I'm used tuk-tuks often and they're cheap and fast. I don't need receipts.
Chief pilot of the world's largest aircraft, Antonov An225, Dmitry Antonov says that they will be utilizing the Maithripala Rajapaksa International Airport more often after considering the space and suitability of the runway to land the enormous plane, which has a maximum takeoff weight of 640 tons. The Antonov An225 landed in Sri Lanka for the first time on Wednesday and departed the island at 4:45 this morning. Antonov An225, considered the world's largest aircraft, was developed in the 1980s to carry the Soviet version of a space shuttle on its back. The world's biggest airplane consists of 6 jet engines with a wingspan of 88 meters and has a maximum takeoff weight of 640 tons. The aircraft landed in Sri Lanka for the first time this Wednesday at 6:35 a.m. and the staff and crew of the aircraft was welcomed by the staff of Maithripala Airport.
We are very happy to make a first land on your airport, the biggest airplane in the world. I believe it's not the last one. We will use your airport in the future. It's very suitable, very good runway, very good space for our airplane. I'm very happy to see these old people who are waiting for us and say welcome to Sri Lanka.
According to the manager of the Maithripala Rajapaksa International Airport, Upul Kalansurya, Sri Lanka received over 15 million rupees in revenue during their brief stay in the island. The Russian airplane took off from the Maithripala Airport at 4:45 a.m. today for Karachi in Pakistan. The Central Environmental Authority today temporarily suspended the operations of the rubber factory in Horana, where 5 people perished after falling into an ammonia tank yesterday. The suspension will be in effect until investigations into the deaths are concluded. Meanwhile, the manager of the factory, who was arrested yesterday, was remanded until the 25th after being produced before the Horana Magistrate Court.
An employee of a rubber factory in the area of Bellapitia in Horana yesterday fell into an ammonia tank after encountering breathing issues when attempting to open and clean it. Another employee attempted to save him and he too succumbed to the same fate. Then 3 villagers also fell into the tank and died when they came to the rescue of the stricken. Their post-mortem was conducted yesterday by the acting magistrate of Horana, Manil Gunathilaka. The bodies were sent to the Judicial Medical Officer of Panadura for his examination today. In the meantime, a representative of the rubber factory in question was present at the Panadura Base Hospital to provide 50,000 rupees in compensation each to the families of the deceased. The offer, however, was met with rejection by family members. The director of the Horana Base Hospital, Dr. Thamara Kalubovila, said 19 others who were admitted with breathing difficulties continue to receive treatment. In the meantime, the manager of the rubber factory, who was arrested yesterday, was produced before the Horana Magistrates Court today. Horana Acting Magistrate Kantika Nangara in turn remanded him until the 25th. Horana police said that investigations are underway to arrest the owner of the rubber factory as well as others implicated in the incident. The Chief Minister of the Western Province, who engaged in an observational tour of the factory premises today, said that measures will be taken to seal the rubber factory in question. Meanwhile, the Central Environmental Authority today determined to suspend the factory's operations until the investigations are concluded.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
The International Monetary Fund says that a staff-level agreement on the 4th review of Sri Lanka's extended fund facility was reached following discussions with authorities in Sri Lanka and during the spring meetings in Washington, D.C. with the IMF Mission Chief for Sri Lanka, Manuela Goretti. The IMF added that further revenue mobilization can make space for social spending while reducing public debt, and added that reforms of state-owned enterprises are critical to minimize fiscal risks. Issuing a statement today, the IMF said it reached a deal on the 4th review under the Economic Reform Program, supported by a 3-year extended fund facility arrangement for $1.5 billion. The IMF said that Sri Lanka has met all end December performance targets involving deficits, forex reserve collection, although inflation went up and has since fallen. IMF Mission Chief Manuel Goretti said, subject to the Sri Lankan Cabinet approval of an automatic fuel pricing mechanism, the IMF board is expected to consider Sri Lanka's request for completion of the fourth review in June 2018. The statement added that the measure would represent a major step towards completing energy pricing reforms in 2018, while further efforts remain needed to strengthen governance and mitigate fiscal risk for state-owned enterprises. US President Donald Trump today criticized OPEC for output reductions that have helped raise oil prices and said the action would not be tolerated as oil prices appeared set for a second consecutive week of gains. Trump said on Twitter that saying it looks like OPEC is at it again with record amounts of oil all over the place, including the fuel-loaded ships at sea. Oil prices are artificially very high. It's not good and will not be accepted. After the US President's tweet, Brent and WTI crude prices turned negative. The oil share price index ended 0.19% firmer at 6,542.40, 0.97 today. The market turnover was 418.5 million rupees and foreign investors sold shares worth a net 5.3 million rupees today, extending the year-to-date net foreign outflow to 1.28 billion rupees worth of equities. With that, let's cross over to Christina Ponzo from NDB Securities for a detailed report on how the market performed during this week.
During the week, the ASPI gained 0.9%, mainly due to price gains in counters such as distilleries, Selinco Insurance and SoftLogic Holdings. Meanwhile, the S&P SR20 increased by 0.1%. The average daily turnover for the week was down from last week to 259 million rupees. Banks, finance and insurance sector recorded the highest sector turnover during the week, whilst the second highest was seen in the diversified sector. Furthermore, foreigners remained subdued for the week, closing as net buyers, where foreign purchases accounted for only 15% of the total weekly turnover. A net foreign inflow of nearly 78 million rupees was recorded for the week.
Former Minister of Justice Dr. Wijedas Rajapaksa says that the joint opposition supporting the abolishment of the executive presidency in a bid to resolve possible internal issues is sacrificial of the country's future. Speaking to First at 9 parliamentarian of the United National Party added that the existing anarchic situation in the country should not be worsened.
The emerging political situation in the country is becoming very dangerous and harmful to the independence and the sovereignty of the country as well as to the people of this country. Janata Vimukti Peramuna wanted to move the 20th amendment to the constitution for the purpose of abolishing the executive presidency. Everybody is aware that the country is in anarchy situation, whereas the parliamentary system itself is in a turbulent situation. With this scenario, there is a question as to why all of a sudden JVP wanted to move to have this executive presidency abolished. Not only the JVP, the Tamil Alliance, then Tamil Diaspora, then NGO group, as well as the joint opposition, all have come to a joint agenda to have the executive presidency abolished. It is not for anything else. That is to destabilize the political structure of this country and also to push the country to a further anarchy situation. We know that there are internal struggles about to be emerged and exploded within the joint opposition, that they can resolve their issues inside. But if they are trying to destroy this country by leading this to a political destabilization for the purpose of resolving their internal struggles about to be exploded, that we won't tolerate that kind of situation to happen in this country.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa says that his stance on the executive presidency will be announced after discussions with Sri Lanka Podujana Perumuna and the joint opposition. He expressed these views speaking to reporters in Kandy today.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa visited the temple of the Sacred Tooth relic in Kandy today. He then called on Mahanayaka of the Malwatha chapter, Venerable Tibbatuwave Sri Sumangala Thera. Later, the former president responded to questions by reporters.
Forget the issues of the people of the south. He doesn't even speak about issues of the northern people. He is only interested in a separate north and east. I should first consult the party. I should announce the stance after consulting them.
The former president later visited the Gatambe Rajupavanaramiya temple to call upon its chief incumbent Kappetiyagoda Sirivimala Thera.
On to international news now. Former FBI Director James Comey, in memos recounting conversations with President Donald Trump last year, said Trump repeatedly raised concerns over salacious allegations in an intelligence dossier, the need for loyalty and ferreting out leakers. The partially redacted memos were handed over yesterday by the U.S. Justice Department to 3 House of Representatives committees. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders, meanwhile, today slammed Comey over the release of his new book due out next week, saying its publications is nothing more than a poorly executed PR stunt by Comey to desperately rehabilitate his tattered reputation. Former FBI Director James Comey's memos include notes on a meeting at the Trump Tower in New York in January 2017, just before Trump's inauguration, in which Comey spoke alone with then-President-elect Comey about the dossier that detailed an alleged 2013 encounter involving Trump and prostitutes in Moscow. The memos also describe a dinner Comey and Trump had at the White House about a week after the inauguration, where Comey said Trump told him he expected loyalty from him. Trump fired Comey in May 2017, while Comey was leading the FBI investigation into allegations of Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election and possible collusion between Trump's campaign and the Russians. The firing led to the appointment of Special Counsel Robert Mueller to continue the investigation. In one memo, Comey recounts a February 8, 2017 meeting with then White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, about 2 weeks after Acting Attorney General Sally Yates had warned the White House that Michael Flynn, then Trump's national security advisor, had lied about his December 2018 conversation with the Russian ambassador to the United States. There are not many people in the world who are able to change the name of a nation. But King Mswati can. He is one of the world's few absolute monarchs. King Mswati III of Swaziland announced on Wednesday that he was renaming the country the Kingdom of Eswatini. A dolphin's carcass was washed ashore at Fort Kochi Beach in India's southern Kerala state yesterday. The cause of the dolphin's death has not been ascertained yet, and authorities suspect it could have died due to lack of food in the coastal waters. A volcano in Japan erupted yesterday for the first time in 250 years, shooting clouds of smoke and rocks into the sky and prompting authorities to ban access to the peak, but there was no reports of any damage or casualties. The eruption, which continued for a second day today, prompted authorities to issue evacuation of nearby mountain lodges and inns following warnings from the Japan Meteorological Agency that volcanic rocks could be hurled as far as 2 kilometers. Meanwhile, in Hawaii, a lava pond steadily expanded over the past month of the active Kilauea volcano. The images were captured by a time-lapse camera between March 20th and April 18th, with approximately 1 image taken per day. President of Sri Lanka Cricket, Maithripala, states that the elections to appoint new board members will be held on the 19th of May. The SLC president further stated that he strongly believes that elections should be held once in every 2 years.
We have been serving in the board for over 2 years of our tenure. Minister of Sports has changed the law that you can hold office for 4 years of a term, and we strongly believe there should be elections once in 2 years. 2-year term is just fine, even though the sports law has given us to go up to 4 years. This year is our election year. Once in 2 years you can get re-elected. The committee wants to continue. So that's where we are now. So elections are fixed for the 19th of May.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Shalila Fernando is at your Derana Weather Centre with your forecast evening edition.
A very good evening and welcome to Forecast First. Your temperatures for tomorrow are to vary between 20 and 33 degrees Celsius, with the lowest expected in the Central Hills. We're looking at the map. A low pressure zone will form from the western province and will gradually disappear. Well, sunny weather is forecasted in some areas of the island, including Jaffna, Trincomalee and Batticaloa. But it will be an opposite scenario in the areas of Vaunia, Anuradhapura, Kandy, Colombo, Galle and Matara, as well as Hambantota, as they will experience showers with thunder showers also expected. That's all we have from the Weather Centre tonight. Up next is your city by city forecast.
So it's Friday, and before we wrap things up for the week, let's share a good story with you. Tonight's story comes from Scottish Rite Hospital in Atlanta, United States, where you meet David Deutschman, who is called as a baby buddy. His duty is to spend time comforting babies who are delivered prematurely or who may require special medical attention. Over the last 12 years, David Deutschman has held and soothed over 1,200 babies at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. Nicknamed the Baby Whisperer by nurses, David's nurturing support has become a godsend for parents while they are away at work or caring for children at home. And that's a part of your world tonight right here on Derana 24/7. I'm Katrina Chang. Have a good weekend and good night.